Good evening, councillors. Sorry, it's now 7 o'clock, so I'm going to open this meeting of the Cleaner and Greener Advisory Committee. There are no fire drills planned. If the fire alarm is activated, which is a continuous siren with a flashing red light, please leave the building immediately following the fire exit signs. We currently have 3 substitutions tonight. Councillor Esler is substituting for Councillor Bailey, Councillor Ferrari is substituting for Councillor Bulford-Lilly, and Councillor Leyland is substituting for Councillor MacArthur. The first item on the agenda is the election of the chairman. Do I have any nominations? Councillor White?
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Councillor Roy, please.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Esler?
Thank you. I'd like to second Councillor Roy, please.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Okay, just a quick show of hands. Those in favour? Thank you. Councillor Roy, you're in the chair.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting. I don't think we have any new members for the start. Actually, perhaps Councillor Abraham, but welcome back. You've been on this committee before. I'm going to move now to item 2, which is the election of the vice chairman. Do we have any nominations? Councillor White.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Bailey, please.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Esler.
Thank you. I'm happy to second Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Any abstentions? 1. Thank you. That is carried. Okay, so I'm now going to turn to the agenda. Before I do, just a quick reminder that all questions for officers, if they could go through the chair, that would be helpful. Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting of the committee held on 2nd December 2025 as an accurate record. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? I think there's some members not here. I think that's the issue, isn't it? Any abstentions? Several. So where are you? Are you happy with that, Phil? Because obviously does it all add up? Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Any interest not already registered? There are none, thank you. Item 5, actions from the previous meeting rather. I don't believe there are any, thank you. Item 6, update from the portfolio holder. That's me, just give me a second. So just after our last meeting in March, the National Lottery Heritage Fund announced the delivery phase bid had been successful, as much anticipated at the time that would be the case, and the council was awarded 1.6 million to restore the historic Bradbourne Lakes in Sevenoaks, for those that are not aware. With planning permission and funding now in place, partners have already started delivering their programmes and the main desilting works are due to begin in October. The contractor is reviewing a new silt management proposal, and if a planning application is approved, the team will be able to use the field across the A25 from the lakes to dry the silt. This is more exciting than it sounds, because if that does go through, this approach will save both time and money in the overall project. So we very much hope that we do get planning permission. And instead of the park reopening in the autumn, that would bring it forward by about 6 months to spring 27. So we really hope that is the case. Our project officer, who started in May, is moving ahead with the community involvement programme. The next engagement sessions are planned for the end of June. one in the park, and one will be a Zoom held on Zoom to keep residents updated on progress. Recent activity in the park has been very positive, including the South East Rivers Trust Fly Monitoring event in May, which was fully booked, as was their family workshop in June. West Kent Mind has launched walk and talk groups, and Kent Wildlife Trust is working with local schools on new educational packs. As last year's first Brabourne Lake Summer Festival was a great success, I am pleased to confirm the festival will return again this year on Saturday, July the 11th. And we're hoping for another strong community turnout with members supporting the event as well. Moving on to environmental health updates. From April 2026, local authorities now have a new responsibility to license premises that keep primates. That includes tamarins, squirrel monkeys, and lemurs. After this date, it will be an offence for anyone to keep a primate without a valid license. The Animal Welfare Primate Licenses Regulations 2024 requires all primate keepers to keep primates in zoo-level standards of animal welfare. Primate keepers will be subject to regular inspections to ensure those standards are upheld. We already have 2 properties in the district that fall under this new licensing requirement. Both keep monkeys, as well as a range of other animals, including pygmy pigs and reptiles. It is proposed that the licence fees will be set in line with the dangerous wild animal fees at £830 for both new applications and renewals. Over the coming year, these fees will be reviewed to ensure that they remain proportionate, with any changes considered as part of next year's fee setting process. Further information, if you're interested, is available on the website. Each year, our food and safety team is responsible for inspecting a large number of food premises across the district. Between April 2025 and March 26, a total of 409 programme inspections were due. I am very pleased to report that the team has completed the vast majority of these, with only a small number outstanding due to the premises being unavailable at the time of inspection. In addition to the programme work, the team has also inspected more than 170 new food businesses that registered with the council during the year. This is a significant achievement for the food team, including invaluable contributions from our trainee environmental health officer, Holly Harris, and our Year 3 apprentice, Lily Allen, who have undertaken several low-risk inspections during the year. The whole team has worked incredibly hard to reach this point, and particular credit goes to Daniel Kenwood, our new food and safety team leader, for his strong leadership and ensuring the results achieved. Moving on, you may remember the responsible dog ownership article that was in Shape last month, and I thought we'll just give you a brief update on how that went. So following the spring in Shape, on responsible dog ownership, the team has carried out a series of monitoring visits across parks and open spaces over the past few months. These visits include checking the condition of the area, reviewing signage, ensuring refuse bins are adequate, and speaking with members of the public where appropriate. We have increased dog fouling signage in key areas and continue to follow up complaints as they arise. We have also responded to several fouling complaints, likely prompted by the recent publicity, including reports, worryingly, from Sevenoaks High Street, the Stag Car Park, Sevenoaks Primary School, and locations in Swanley. So it's quite clear that the campaign was much needed. Our animal licensing and welfare officer, Anne-Marie Milton, continues to visit sites regularly across the district as part of the ongoing monitoring. Turning to waste and recycling, the food waste roadshows in Sevenoaks, Swanley and Edenbridge were extremely worthwhile and very well attended. It was also great to see members from across the district supporting each of the events. I attended all 3 with the team, and it was clear that residents approaching the stands had already read about the new service in Shape or on social media. A good sign that the communications plan is working well. Feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and residents took the chance to look at the new caddies and clarify any questions about usage and collections. The rollout of the new food waste collection service has gone exceptionally well. The volumes we are collecting are already far higher than anticipated, showing residents are really embracing the new service. This sits within a much wider positive picture on recycling performance, culminating in the district's highest ever recycling levels, as highlighted in last week's press release. The success of the rollout has been a genuine team effort from the staff and crews at Dunbrick, as well as our comms and customer solutions team. And of course, Trevor and Dan, whose meticulous planning and delivery have been central to the success of the new service. My thanks to you all. We will be hearing more about that shortly. For all inquiries on the new service, please remember to signpost residents to the extensive FAQs on the website and continue to make your communities aware of the service changes. That would be really helpful. That ends my portfolio update. Are there any questions? Councillor Shea.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive report. On the responsible dog ownership, you say that work has been going on in the parks and open spaces in particular around signage, bins and so on, but then identified that problems are actually perhaps in the more urban setting. Is similar work going on in the High Street and in Swanley Town Centre to deal with the same issues there?
Thank you for that. So broadly speaking, we have a monitoring programme for problem areas. So the campaign has clearly identified areas that are going to go on that list. And as a result of their findings on those visits, they have, as I say, checked bins, checked signage and recommended changes as appropriate. So my understanding is that the sites identified will be added to the monitoring list, and I can give you some more details about that offline if necessary.
May I follow up? Sorry, on that.
Yes, of course.
If I may. Thank you. I've had some feedback through casework that it's very difficult to report this issue online. It's quite buried deep into a number of layers of reporting structure on our website. It's under street cleansing, but people are looking for something that's more obviously about dog fouling. I wonder if that might be taken away and looked at and find a way to make it easier for people to report the problem. The casework I was dealing with, somebody was really casting around trying to find the right place to report an issue.
Yes, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I wasn't aware of that, and we will indeed take that away and see if we can improve that. Are there any other questions? No, thank you. Moving back to the agenda. Item 7. Referral from Cabinet or Audit Committee, if any. There are none. Thank you. So we then move straight on to item 8, Waste Transition Project Update, pages 7 to 12 of your papers. Members will recall that this committee has received regular updates on the waste transition project as it progresses through what is one of the most significant service changes undertaken by this council in recent years. This report provides a further update on progress since our March meeting, particularly following the successful introduction of weekly food waste collections at the end of April. And it also looks ahead at the next major milestone, namely the introduction of alternate weekly collections and wheeled bins later on in the year. I'm pleased to report that the project remains on track within the approved budget and operating within the governance arrangements previously approved by members. The successful mobilisation of food waste collections has involved a considerable amount of work across multiple council teams, as I mentioned earlier, and delivery partners. And I would like to place on record my thanks to everyone involved.
Not sure when the right place is, but about the food waste collection. I'd like to talk about the exemplary service that happened this week. I have a resident who has written to me every day for 3 weeks. Very, very polite, lovely apology, written to Kevin as well. And basically that all the rest of his waste gets collected, but the food waste, they're one of 4 houses in Westerham, doesn't get touched. And it doesn't seem to matter how many times they report it, how they report it, nothing happens. And Trevor sent Elliot personally to his house to apologise. I think that is up and beyond call of duty. I'd just like to record our thanks. And I hope that next week's gets collected, because it'll be the first time if it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Esler. Happy to be interrupted for such positive feedback. That doesn't surprise me of Trevor. He likes to get these issues dealt with as quickly as he can, and I'll pass on those comments back to the team. Thank you. Yes, so back to my introduction. The report highlights some encouraging early indicators. More than 48,000 households received food waste caddies ahead of the launch. The new collection rounds and technology are now operating successfully, and participation levels are developing positively as residents become more familiar with the new service. Members will also note that the report includes a recommendation relating to the future of the reusable green recycling sacks. These sacks have delivered both increased recycling performance and significant financial savings for the council. However, the introduction of the larger wheeled recycling bins from October, they will no longer form part of the collection system. And Cabinet is being asked to consider the proposed approach for their withdrawal and recycling if residents no longer wish to use them for some other purpose. I will now invite Dan Smythe, our Waste Transition Project Manager, to provide members with more of a more detailed update before we move to Daniel for the project communications update. Over to you, Dan.
Thank you, Chair. As members will be aware, our immediate focus over recent months has been the successful mobilisation and launch of food waste collections. I'm pleased to advise the service commenced as planned on the 27th of April and is operating across the whole district. This required the procurement and commissioning of specialist vehicles, recruitment and training of crews, distribution of more than 48,000 caddy sets, implementation of new collection rounds, and deployment of new digital systems and in-cab technology. All of those elements were delivered in time for launch. As with any project of the scale, however, we experienced some issues during the initial bedding in period, but these were well within the levels anticipated during project planning and contingency modelling. Since launch, we've seen a significant reduction in missed collection reports, increasing operational efficiency, and growing resident participation as households become familiar with the new arrangements. One particularly encouraging statistic is that during the first 2 weeks alone, residents separated approximately 104 tonnes of food waste, which has risen to 120 tonnes in the last fortnight, equivalent to the fourth best local authority in Kent already. If participation continues at similar levels, this would equate to over 3,000 tonnes of food waste being diverted each year, delivering significant environmental benefits and helping residents prepare for the move to alternate weekly residual waste collections in the autumn. Attention is now increasingly turning towards that next phase of the programme. From July, we will begin the distribution of approximately 100,000 wheel bins across the district. To put that in perspective, this will involve the delivery of over 100 articulated lorry loads of bins to the council and a distribution exercise lasting approximately 3 months. It's a major logistical undertaking in its own right. Project team is therefore heavily focused on detailed planning around bin distribution, communications, customer support, digital customer solutions, route design, and the remaining property assessments required before October. While there remains a small risk around the timing of delivery of a handful of the new fleet vehicles, contingency arrangements are already built into the project, and officers remain confident that the October implementation remains achievable. Finally, members will note the section regarding the reusable green recycling sacks. The evidence shows they've achieved their objectives of saving money and increasing recycling. However, they are being superseded by the subsequent requirement to move to wheel bin containment. The report therefore proposes a managed withdrawal once wheeled bins are introduced, with residents encouraged either to reuse the sacks themselves or return them for recycling during the transition period. Chair, that concludes my introduction, and I'm happy to answer members' questions now or after Daniel's presentation.
I think we'll try splitting it this time. We'll do it slightly different. Dan, thank you for that report. Any questions for Dan, first of all? Councillor Algar.
Thank you, Chair. Without sounding like a broken record, I'd like to address the green sacks and the bins that we've already purchased as residents of the district. What I want to know is if we all want to return our green bags and if we all want to return our bins that we currently have, does Dunbrick have capacity for 110,000 wheelie bins, and does the KCC materials handling facility have capacity for our green sacks? Thank you, Chair.
Interesting. I can assure you all that the level of logistics will have been addressed. Some of that is in the papers, but Dan, is there anything further you wish to add to that?
Just that, yes, I think we are expecting to accept those green sacks for recycling during Recycle Week, hopefully within the bins. However, we expect people to have full bins, so beside the bins will be fine as well. It might be for the first 3 or 4 cycles, but we will probably need to cease taking them at some point because the materials recycling facility isn't going to want to receive them indefinitely. Regarding residents' current bins, I believe they're private property, and I think it's already been discussed in this committee and in others, and it's in the frequently asked questions that they remain the responsibility of the residents.
Thank you, Dan. If I may follow up just really quickly on that. I appreciate that they are our private property, but to me, that's a solution that doesn't take into consideration waste. I have put forward some suggestions of what we could do with the bins, and I've been referred to the FAQs where I don't see an answer to my question. So I'd really just, in terms of our residents, and I'm putting forward suggestions from our residents, that we do actually consider what we can do with our current bins. It is just waste. It doesn't matter on the ownership, it is just waste. I really think would be a very forward-thinking initiative to think about what we can do with it, regardless of the ownership here. Thank you.
Councillor Elgar, as Dan said, this was discussed in the previous committee meeting, and it was also discussed at full council in the chamber. I think we've made our position perfectly clear. As I said in the chamber, our residents own all sorts of things that they wish to dispose of, and they do not automatically become our property if they haven't been provided by the council. So I think unless Dan, we did take away that we would look at schemes that might be helpful to residents and put that forward, but we will not be picking them up and disposing of them. I think that's correct, is it not, Dan?
Yeah, that's right. I just wanted to add, well, I haven't done any
That's not my
detailed
question, no.
sums, just doing the maths in my head. If there's 15 to 20,000 bins out there and we were to collect them, store them, send them for recycling, which is difficult because they're quite light, so normally you need to squash them or bale them for shipment. While they are desirable to some plastic recyclers within the UK, you often have to pay for it. The sort of scale and magnitude of cost that sort of just running around my head is 100 to 200,000 pounds. So it's not an insubstantial project to consider. However, I could work up further details should the council require me to do so, Chair.
My feeling on that is I don't think it's appropriate for taxpayers to pay for other people's waste to be disposed of for free. That's my personal view, which is what it would be at the end of the day. So, Councillor Elgar, if it's really quick, because this will be the 3rd time now I've come back to you, and I think we have made our position.
Yeah, sure. Actually, that wasn't my question. What I was asking wasn't about you collecting or wasting taxpayers' money. It was about an initiative where we could actually use these bins in a practical way. It has nothing to do with cost to the council, cost to the taxpayer. It's about us actually taking an initiative and, really leading on this and actually not wasting. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not privy to that suggestion, but Dan, do you want to just cover that off?
Only to say that I believe that if they were taken to Kent Waste Disposal Authority, one of the HWRCs, they would be recycled as hard plastic. There is an active recycling market in the UK for wheeled bin plastic, and I think some of the wheel bin manufacturers actually recycle them directly and purchase them. But there's just a lot of cost involved because of their lightweight relative to volume.
Thank you, Dan. The question that I was actually asking Trevor was if we could use our bins that are fitting and appropriate for garden waste rather than buying our green bins.
I really don't think we want to go down into this sort of detail, Dan. I'm sure Trevor, it sounds like you've already had a response from Trevor from all of these things. So I don't think, let's deal with it offline. If you've got some suggestions that we can put forward that are not going to impact on the council in ways of, additional resource or funds which we don't have, then we'll happily have a look at it. All right, can we leave it there, please?
My answer was to look at the FAQs, to which there was no answer.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. I think it was Councillor Manston and then Councillor Abraham. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly to say that my residents have also been asking about that, so I'd be really interested in hearing more about that at another point from Councillor Algar, please. And then just a couple of points on the report. Thank you, Dan, for that. Firstly, I just wanted to double check with you if Barnfield Park have got their food waste being collected. And secondly, I just wanted to say about recycling of the green sacks. I have contacted our KCC member because I'm concerned about it's not within our remit, but I think it's important for us to be aware that there was a report in 2024 that said 70% of plastics, soft plastics, are burned for energy as opposed to recycled. And I did email about this, and you did reply to me, so thank you for your reply. But I think we need to get that clarified from KCC as to how they deal with our soft plastics when we give it to them, just so that we know where the plastic, that we're telling our residents to take there, whether it is being recycled or not. So I wanted to update the committee that I'm waiting for a response on that. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't think that second part of that question was in your email, but this is something that we must do by March 2027. And I do know that Kent County Council officers are looking at it, because at our road shows, some of them were present, and there's a lot of discussion around it. Is there anything you can add to that, Dan?
Yeah, a couple of things. Barnfield Park, I'll take that away and look into it. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm aware we've changed drivers in the last 2 weeks. After a very successful New Ash Green, I think we probably had a few more missed bins last week than we were expecting. That might have impacted. The recycling the green sacks, they are recyclable if we can bulk them up as one type of thing. I used to operate a materials handling facility, so I'm aware that there's a market for them. They're mostly polypropylene. It depends on the MRF and what they do. There is, from any recycling delivered into a materials handling facility, our level of contamination or undesirable products that get sent to normally incineration. I believe that the council reports that as part of its waste data flow reporting to national government, and there are statistics available online via the ONS and DEFRA.
Councillor Manston, do you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for clarifying that. I just to clarify then, I was under the impression that they were fully recyclable and could go in plastic recycling. But I think the impression that I'm hearing now is that they can only be recycled if they are provided within that first 4-week period. Is that right?
I don't believe so, Dan.
It's not been, I don't believe that's been determined or said. It's my opinion as a materials handling facility ex-manager that if I was to receive a lot of those green bags, I'd really like to have them in a fixed period, because I can bulk them and sell them as they are, rather than mix them into a mixed recycling stream. Therefore, I'd realise a greater value, which would be better for the disposal authority. So I was answering on my part rather than what's been agreed by Trevor with KCC.
If I may, thank you.
Yes,
so sorry to come back again, but just then I think we need to just clarify KCC's position on that so that we can advise our residents accordingly. So, there'll be some people that may want to recycle after that 4-week period. So we just need to advise them, I think. Thank you.
I'm sure that has already been done as we've put it out in the papers, but thank you. Next, I believe it was Councillor Abraham.
Will the council be selling the compostable bags for the food bins?
Very good question, because we discussed this on Monday afternoon. Dan.
Thank you, Councillor and Chair. The latest position is we have been exploring that, and we believe 15 of the 20 outlets where we normally sell the disposable paper garden sacks are very interested, and we're at the last phases of arranging the purchase and delivery of some sacks to those outlets and agreeing what the price will be for residents. But I think it represents a significant discount over what is available in the supermarkets, etc. So we do have people on board. We're working with our Kent Resource Partnership colleagues and the operations team at Direct Services to get that off the road. I'm hoping to have some good news in the coming weeks. I think that will help counter the disappointment from some who will run out of sacks soon after they've been using the service for a little bit of time. So hopefully a good news story in that respect.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, please don't make any promises to residents until we've confirmed that. Councillor Abraham, are you happy with that response? Did you have a comment? Yes. Lovely, thank you. Next was Councillor Shea, then Councillor White, Councillor Esler and Councillor Gustav.
Thank you very much, Chair, and for Councillor Abraham's information in case he's not discovered it yet. The low-cost German supermarkets do excellent priced bags in their supermarkets. Just a comment, please. The papers, the recommendation is looking for discussion and views on the green bag changes, and I'd like to offer one if I may. I'm sure there will be plenty of others. When the bags were introduced a few years ago, many on this committee accepted them reluctantly on the assurance that they would form part of a new, more comprehensive overhaul of the very outdated collection service that we had at the time. That was the position that I certainly took, and I wasn't alone. They've been a stopgap. And yes, they have saved some money, but they have been a stopgap with a very short life to them. And now they're becoming waste themselves. So I think it is incumbent upon us to ensure that in disposing of them, we do it as responsibly, as effectively and as efficiently as we can. They haven't been well received in the time that they've been out there. And now we're getting rid of them, having said for a long time in this committee and elsewhere that we would find a use for them. And we're not doing that. So whatever we do with them now has to be done with the utmost care and efficiency and the best possible disposal and reuse of those materials, because they have had a very short life in this role.
Thank you. I'm just going to come in for a hand over to Dan, because this sort of predates Dan's time with us. First and foremost, the reason to switch over to reusable bag was to save costs in the budget. That came first, and research shows that the green bags do increase recycling. We've talked about that before, and that's been in previous papers. At that time, and for a long time, as you well know, as I've said it many times in the council chamber, we were waiting and waiting and waiting for secondary legislation and the statutory guidance on how the new simpler recycling would take shape. And there was an initial announcement from the Conservatives just right before the election. Then we had to wait another 6 months for the new government to confirm whether or not they were going to continue with the simpler recycling initiative. Initially, when that came out, it is in the papers, but not in quite so much detail, we thought we would have to separate paper and card from the rest of the dry recycling. So it was the thinking at the time was that will be perfect for the reusable bags. Government realised that wasn't working very well, and the requirement to collect them separately was no longer required if there was a good reason for it. So we have come up with a system that is probably one of the most simple systems that around the county, probably around the UK, where you have simply 2 bins, one for recycling, one for black waste, and the food caddy, which will need to be put out weekly. So it basically replaces like for like with the addition of the caddy. And on top of all of that, as it says in the FAQs, as it said in the press release, it has saved this council in its short life over 225,000 net. It's taken out, 4 million plus single-use plastic sacks out of circulation. And most importantly, it's increased our recycling rate. So I'm struggling to find a problem with that. It's a win-win. Government, as you know, constantly, we have a changing government in all of this time, constantly changes its mind, and we've done our very best to make it work. And what we're saying to our residents, we believe many residents will hang on to those bags, use them for storage, putting garden waste into them, put it, as Trevor often says, putting it over the barbecue during the winter, etc., etc. And those that don't wish to hang on to it, to reuse, which by the way is the preferred option, then we will take it away and recycle them, which will also generate actually income too. So I'm going to have to disagree with you on your sentiments there. I thought you would come back, Councillor Shea.
Thank you. I understand the points about the process, the design process has been gone through in the last 18 months to 2 years. But this council had commissioned reports from RAP and from APSI going back to 2018, perhaps further back than that, which had made it very clear then that we needed to move to wheeled bins for the health and safety of our own teams. So it's not just about, the process that we've gone through is not just about the need to wait out for the current government's view on simpler recycling, because this is a much longer story than this. And that is why at the time they were introduced, it was important they didn't become a stopgap. They have done. I'm glad to hear that they're going to be recycled. I'm glad to hear that they're going to be dealt with properly. But it's important that we recognise that this has been a very short-lived experiment.
Thank you, Councillor Shea. And as you well know, whilst some of those points were in the original Act, we waited until, I think it was the beginning of last year, was it this year? I lose track now, for the statutory guidance, which tells you the how, not just the headline, areas of recycling, but how that is to be collected. And as you well know, there are many councils that steamed ahead, and Bromley, for example, where they had to separate waste, requiring up to 6 different containers. This council did not want to do that. Our waste collection service, as you know from our satisfaction service, is extremely popular. We were not going to burden our residents with that scheme. We waited for the fine detail. Then there was a huge change because it was all too complicated, and it was the previous government that came up with the simpler recycling. And I think our residents are largely receiving that. I'm very grateful that they haven't got to have umpteen dozen different containers on their doorsteps. So I think we're sort of going off at a bit of a tangent. We have covered these points before, so I'm going to move on to Councillor White. I think you were next.
Thank you. I also wanted to raise a comment on the green sacks, but mine's a little bit more positive. I'm just going to ask that if during the 4-week recycling period where the sacks can be handed in, can we repeat the comms that the sacks have been a cost saving of 225,000, and just to help emphasise that so the community is aware?
Thank you, Councillor White, and I do appreciate some positive feedback. That'll be in the in-shape, and I'm sure Daniel's got that covered in all his comments, but we note the point, and we'll probably come back to that when Daniel's done his presentation. Councillor Esler, I believe you were next, and then Councillor Gustav.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to thank Dan that you're investigating about the food waste sacks. I had a lovely time in Tesco and Sainsbury's, went and found supervisors who told me there'd been such a run on them, there weren't any available. That's apart from the fact they've hidden them. I don't know if you're aware, they're sort of in a corner right at the front, not at the back with all the household stuff. And we were about 6 people there, all talking to each other, discussing the need for these sacks, and we couldn't find them. And eventually I bought the wrong thing on Amazon. So please do go ahead. We're very happy to get them.
Thank you, Councillor. So we'll see what we can do. Councillor Gustav.
Thank you. My turn. I felt like I was waiting forever. Yes, so like Councillor Esler, I've also been receiving emails over the last few weeks from residents frustrated by their household waste bins not being collected. And one of the particular complaints, and I wonder if you might have some thoughts on this, Chair, was that if it wasn't collected, they reported it using the council website, but because they'd been away and when they came back discovered the bin hadn't been collected, it wasn't within 24 hours. The bin, it was too late and they had to wait the following week. Now, I understand for some kinds of waste that's probably fine, but given the system we're moving towards where those bins are quite small and they're full of, smelly food waste that might attract vermin, might we want to review that rule on the 24 hours, please?
I think that's a problem that is ironing out, is it not, Dan? And we'll continue to do so as we go forward. But I think there's some confusion over when the waste would be collected. So we are talking about the food caddies and not general waste here.
Yes, the food caddies,
caddies,
just
yeah.
certain addresses were missed, not whole streets.
I'll hand over to Dan.
I think in the first week or two, there was such a high level of missed collections from having new staff. I don't think everyone realises that the amount of passes that they have to do, the amount of houses they have to visit and look for bins is much more than a normal collection round, because the participation rates are much lower, and having to find where those bins are placed, and they weren't always visible. Lots of those staff were new that week into the council, so we had such a level of missed bins that we actually didn't get to pick them up within the normal 2 or 3 day cycle, and we did write to approximately 600 people after a couple of weeks apologising that we hadn't been for their missed bin until the following week. We're still finding some people are reporting a missed bin now, having been very patient with us. So we didn't know it had been missed, but now they're coming and saying, oh, it's 3 or 4 weeks. And we're negotiating with people saying, but actually we couldn't see it there and we didn't know. So there's an ongoing recurring issue. I think the overall policy regarding the 24 hours to report, which for people on a Friday is late on a Monday, obviously because the weekends, and to facilitate people who want to call the council to report a missed bin is a sort of approved policy now. I think though that there needs to be a review of that policy probably around about the time of the bins. I think that'd normally be appropriate about the time of the changes then, and probably up for discussion there with colleagues and whether it's working or not. It's something that most councils do. I think it's quite appropriate for this council. It's especially difficult with the rural nature of much of the borough, where you have crews working in zonal systems, and then they get a missed bin, say, 3 days later when they are in a really long way away from that bin, and you're having to send a crew sometimes on an hour's round trip to deal with a missed bin. And you're sending a dust cart at 5 miles per gallon with a crew of 2 or 3 people on, which is very costly. There are things we can do to make sure that we also, with the in-cab system on the new vehicles, get much better. And we're still learning on the food waste, but with the waste bins especially, we'll record if someone hasn't put their bin out by collection time. Therefore, it will be their fault, and therefore we wouldn't have to go back. So that normally balances that system off. But I just recommend that there's a review of all the standard collection policies later this year.
I think that's a very good idea. Happy with that response?
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, have I missed anybody with a question or a comment for Dan? No, in which case then we'll move on to part 2 of the update and over to Daniel.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening. So I'm just going to give a very brief update of what we've done up until now in terms of communications and what we've got to come in the coming months. So what's happened so far? About 6 months ago, I came to this committee with a communication strategy, which was agreed. Out of the communication strategy, we drew up a visual identity guide, which we're using throughout the entire project. And there were a number of quite specific actions that we've carried out around the food waste service, and they include features in the spring issue of In Shape. We've done a lot of social media, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail shortly. Lots of work on the website, leaflets that went out with the bins, 3 roadshows. We've been working on the vehicle livery of the new collection vehicles, school naming competition. We worked with a production company to produce a couple of professional looking videos. We've been working with Dan and the team to produce specific bespoke communications for residents in New Ash Green. And we've been working with Dan and the team again on our internal comms. So I think we covered most of those actions at last meeting. I think I shared with you some of the draft communications that were going out or had gone out. I don't think we need to go through all that again. But since we last met, we have done quite a lot of work on social media. And I thought it'd be useful just to give you some insight into where we got with that. So the campaign started in early January, and we've put out 44 posts up until the 31st of May. Facebook is where all the action is taking place Facebook is where we're getting all of the engagement. And we've had over 660,000 views on Facebook alone. We've had significantly less on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. But yeah, we've had a lot of very, very useful comments, lots of useful insight, and huge amount of reach, which I think has really helped with this particular campaign. So there's really kind of two key phases to the social media campaign. So we were informing residents before the service started about what was coming. So a soft introduction about the food waste service, details of food waste caddy deliveries, how the food service works, what happens to residents' food. We also used the social media to help with the naming competition. We helped promote the food row shows, and we did have a good number of people turn up for those. We also used it for some quite specific location-based comms, and that included New Ash Green. And shortly before the service went live, we put out some posts just reminding people that this is a new service with new crews, and for residents to be kind to our staff. I think they heard that. Post the service implementation, we have been doing more social media. So at the end of the first week, a thank you went out to our residents. We've also been giving residents some indication about how much we've been collecting, and we tried to make it mean something to our residents. So Dan will probably correct me here. So for example, if we collect 60 tons of food waste in a week, that is enough to power 7 average homes for a year. So we're just trying to make it mean something to residents. And just a gentle reminder that food waste is collected in a separate vehicle. I'll come on to that a little bit in the learning of the campaign. I put this slide up last time, and so I won't run through it in any detail, but we know that of the sort of 700 or 800 comments that we received, that they equated to less than 1% of the residents who'd actually seen our posts. There was some concerns that were raised through the comments, so it was very, very useful insight. Concern about where they would store their bins, concerns about vermin and smells. Some people said they didn't need to use the service because they composted at home. There was concern about costs. Some people felt that we shouldn't be collecting food waste separately and we should combine it with garden waste. But there was also a lot of support for the new service. And so you can see from the tone of comments, the majority of the comments were in fact neutral. And since the service went live, actually the number of comments, as you expect, has really massively declined, and the number of concerns has really, really dropped off. So that's testament to Dan and the team delivering a really good service. So what was the key learning that we found from the first stage of the comms? Well, using lots of different channels really worked for us, in Shape and leaflets, and the social media was particularly helpful with the reach of over 600,000 people. We kind of knew this anyway, but we got some evidence that actually the comments that people were putting on our Facebook were not representative of the views of the wider population. At the roadshows, most people that we spoke to were actually very, very supportive of the changes that we're implementing in terms of food waste, and people also wanted to talk to us about alternate weekly. I didn't know anyone that was opposed to alternate weekly, so that wasn't a concern that people raised. We think the bespoke comms in New Ash Green work really well for us. New Ash Green is a challenging area to collect from. Dan and I worked on something with the GIS team, and we provided letters with maps advising people where to put their bins. We thought that worked well. We know from our comms that not all people were aware that our food waste is collected separately from their main, with their general waste. It was in most of our comms, but I think with hindsight, we could have probably done a little bit more to promote that. So that is a definite bit of learning for us. So what happens next? So we are now in the final stages of drawing up an action plan for the wheelie bin service. It's looking like an 18-week campaign that will start in early July. There's a lot to communicate. because there's a big change, and it's likely to involve more bespoke direct comms with households, part of the learning from the first stage of the project. Look and feel of the campaign. Well, we've already got the brand guide, so we'll continue to stick with that. So we'll just be using what's in the guide for us. We've shared the comms plan with the KRP. They've come back, they're behaviour change experts. They've given me a few things that they think that we need to focus on. And I would say the key things are explaining why we are making the changes, and doing that as often as we can, and talking about the benefits. There's a lot to communicate. So they've said to me, drip feed the communication at all of the touch points. Don't try and do it all at once. And there is distrust, not necessarily locally, but nationally, around what happens with waste and recycling. So what we need to do is to make sure residents know what happens to their waste and what happens to their recycling. Kent County Council have got some excellent videos on their website that take you into the recycling centre. So we're going to certainly be sharing those in our comms. Lots of key messages. I won't go through them all, but here are some of them. So at the start of the project, one of the key messages is actually we're introducing this service to help you recycle more of your waste, and there are environmental and cost benefits. We need to tell people when to use their wheelie bins. Some people are going to get their wheelie bins considerably several months before they'll need to use them. So we need to just reiterate when they should use them. We want to make it clear that actually all the recycling, all your clean recycling, goes into just one bin. I think that it will go down well with our residents. I, for one, have to put it in more than one bin, living in a neighbouring council area. And something Kent have told us that the Kent behaviour team has said that we need to bang this particular drum very loudly, that food waste will remain a weekly service. There's a perception in other areas that food waste becomes alternate weekly. It's not, it's weekly. And actually a key message is use the weekly food waste service. It will help keep your general waste bin clean and stop it from becoming smelly. We've got some comms around the reusable sacks, so we will be telling people how they can recycle them should they wish to do so, and some work around the savings and in terms of costs and single-use plastics, and to remind residents that actually we have seen an uplift in recycling since their use. And we need to communicate the new, I call them business rules, but they're actually called waste collection service standards. It's taken me a long while to remember that, but we do need to communicate that implicitly and at regular times. And so a couple of those key ones are you must use our wheelie bins. If you receive council wheelie bins, that's how your waste will be collected. And you need to put all of your waste inside the bin, with the exception of cardboard, which we will take if your recycling bin is full. But no, we will not take sideways. And that's a common thing in other councils, but something new for our residents. How will we communicate? Same channels that we used last time, InShape, social media. There will be more direct communication with our residents. We'll do further work on our website. We're considering roadshows again, professional videos. Dan and I have been working on putting information on the bins this week, telling people what should and shouldn't go in them. And there will be more comms with staff and with members to keep them up to date. So we're working on our social media plan as we speak. It will start with coming soon, and the social media plan will be executed in, as I say, in early July. Key dates when the bins will be delivered, explaining to residents what goes in their bins, more information about keeping it simple. All your dry recycling goes in just one bin. Asking residents to look out for our communications when we send letters and postcards, what residents can do with their reusable sacks. Food waste is weekly. What happens to waste and recycling, sharing the KCC videos. And once we're in the phase where the service has started, we will start to feed back to residents on how well they're doing. We expect our recycling rates to increase. We want residents to know how well they're doing. So there will be a phase on that. So this is something my colleague Amy knocked up for me today. This is just to give you an idea of what the social media will and may look like. These will be eventually designed by a professional, but it's something Amy knocked together on Canva. So just to give you a feel of how things will look. So that's my update. I'm grateful for your time as ever, and I'm happy to answer questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. That was a great update. Thank you for that. Are there any questions for Daniel, Councillor Esler, Councillor White and Councillor Darrington?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Daniel. I do have one question, which doesn't seem to fit in with your plans, and that is, if you buy ready food to put into the oven, the container that it's in gets ruined and you have to throw that in your black waste, which will no longer be collected weekly. So that stinks. Same goes if you've had fish or whatever. It's not food waste, it's the container that holds it. Particularly things like the Bingham products, they're in wood, which we don't recycle, with paper inside gets absolutely ruined. So there are a lot of things that are going to make the black waste smell, and that's now going to be by
I have to start some home
Thank
cooking,
you.
Councillor Esler. I have to start some home cooking, and I know you're a great cook. Let's see if Dan has a solution.
Yeah, I'll just take that one. Thank you, Chair. I think with I'm thinking of the plastic. I didn't think of cardboard or wooden ones, but things that go in the oven and then you throw them away. Obviously, if there's any food waste left in there, I'd like you to scrape it on, put it in your food waste system. What I tend to do, if I think I've got this time of year, if I think I'm going to have a problem with smelly waste bins, is give things a little rinse. Takes away most of the waste. But nonetheless, what I do in my home, I have an internal bin, and I think this is what most people do. They put their daily waste that they're not recycling into an internal bin. They normally line that with a sack. That sack gets tied off. Some of them come with drawstrings, and you put that in your wheelie bin. And if you're not keeping your wheelie bin inside your house, while it might be slightly odorous, they don't represent a problem. They're used up and down the country, and we get very few in the industry complaints of, oh, my bin is smelly. And should your bin, split bags, high summer, get a little bit smelly, some people give it a little spray with some Jay's fluid or a similar sort of cleaning product.
Can I come back on that?
Yes, some good advice there.
Yes, I think I need to. We keep a meticulous house. Yes, we do have a liner in the bin. No, we don't do whatever. But the fact remains that if you have baked something in a container, you can't scrape it off. You can't wash it off. It's stuck on it and it smells. And that, at the moment, I have a sick husband at home. I'm into my 4th week of it. And thank goodness for ready food. So, no, I don't think any of your things will work with us. And we're using all of them. And yes, we're careful. But it smells right now. And it's this week's rubbish. It was collected this morning.
Can I challenge, was that rubbish collected this morning from sacks that you'd kept a week? Or had you kept them in a lidded, wheeled bin outside the house, that therefore you wouldn't have smelt inside the house?
A mixture, because I wait till my bin in the kitchen is full, which is its own sack inside a bin. And then I put it outside, and I opened it this morning to put the bin bag in, and it smelt.
I'm just playing out, sorry, the logic on my side is it's in my bin. Once I put it outside, it can smell in the bin because I'm not going near the bin too often. And then I present the bin, and it's the bin men who deal with the smelly waste, and which is why if you ever follow one of our trucks, they smell. Okay.
Okay.
I'd rather not, but.
Thank you, Dan. I think we'll leave that one there. Thank you. Okay, Councillor White, please.
Dan, thanks so much for your, Daniel, sorry, thanks so much for your presentation. I might be taking you too literally, so forgive me. Did you say that if we're collecting 60 tonnes of food waste a week, that's enough to power 7 households for a year?
Yes, that's my rough calculation.
So if that's occurring, where's the tangible gain for residents in Sevenoaks?
It's just to give you an idea of how many homes, how much electricity could power those homes. So over the course of the year, you're looking at literally potentially hundreds of homes. And the benefit, I guess, to residents is your food waste is being put to good use to create renewable energy.
Councillor White?
I didn't understand that.
Sorry, okay. So the benefit to the resident who has put their food waste using their food waste, our food waste collection system, is that they are helping to create renewable energy, because the food waste goes off to a plant, an anaerobic digestion plant. In the plant, it creates gas, a biogas, which is captured, and that is used to generate clean electricity. So our residents, by taking part in this service, are helping to create clean, carbon-free electricity.
And I'd add to that huge cost savings on disposal for Kent County Council. You may have seen that figure in some of the press releases. Okay, all right, for me to move on. Councillor Darrington and then Councillor Manston.
Thank you, Chair. Two very quick points. Firstly, the food caddies are working extremely well. There are far fewer split plastic sacks due to vermin and wildlife. That's working very well. Second point is, again for Dan, voice is gone. When we move to wheelie bins, if people put black sacks outside of wheelie bins, they won't be collected, will they? Will be determined as fly tipping.
Normally, I think what we would do is sticker them with some feedback saying we won't collect this where side waste, and then the resident, after we've emptied their normal bin, would have the opportunity to put it back in their bin. I don't think we'd get into enforcing as fly tipping until we had an extreme problem, and then we'd probably go through a section 46 notice route, asking that resident to improve their waste segregation and give them some coaching before we get to enforcement. So there's normally quite a few steps to go through rather than just treat it as fly tipping immediately, Councillor.
Good answer.
Thank you, Councillor Darrington. Councillor Manston.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to really commend the comms that have come out to New Ash Green, as was mentioned. I think that they have been dealt with sensitively, and it is a very complex area. So I just looking forward to the next stages really of rollout. I guess I think it's just important that we continue in that vein, because it'll be, you know, yet another different set of challenges. And there are kind of, I don't know if it's been similar in other areas of the district, but there are challenges with other interested parties. So whilst I think the collection has gone well, I'm not sure that it's quite where the council would like it to be yet. Hence the maps for stipulating some more sort of specific collection points. And I think that's just something that we take forward and try to kind of address with, you know, not just residents but other interested parties ahead of the next rollout. But like I say, I really commend how it's been managed with this one. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Manston, because we went through a very sticky patch with all of that, and so that feedback is welcomed, and I'm sure we'll continue communicating with New Ash Green stakeholders going forward for phase 2. Is that the Councillor Elgar?
Thank you, Chair. Question for Dan. As you know, we've been contacted by residents, and probably all of us have as councillors. What is your advice for giving feedback to residents? Maybe this is for Daniel, actually, from a comms perspective, how to manage the residents who are clearly concerned and distressed about managing the bins in the autumn. Thank you.
We'd like to take that. Dan?
It depends on the concerns with management, and I think we've had a good lessons learned session from phase 1, which we're integrating into the comms, as Daniel's given some highlights today. And then I think there needs to be a focus on some of those. There's perceived concerns, and I think we need to help support people to not have those fears. A bit like we saw with the Facebook comments that then have diminished. You know, they haven't seen the problems people were perceiving with the food waste. One of those that springs to my mind is around assisted collections. Obviously, the ability to move bins I've already been working on a little bit of text that I'm trying to work into some of the comms at the moment around the fact that actually some people find them more manoeuvrable than just loose sacks, because once they're designed to get the weight onto the pivot point of the axle, and then they're very light and you can maneuver them. But some people still won't be able to, and we'll obviously offer assisted collections. People are going to have concerns around the waste containment and the volume, and we need to do a lot of encouragement to have people try in the first place to segregate their waste and probably discover that a 180 litre bin is sufficient for them, unless they're in a larger household where we'll have a policy to give them more waste containment. The experience elsewhere is people get very concerned about that, and they say when you ask them in week 1, I'm never going to be able to get all my household waste into a 180 litre bin. When you go back 4 weeks, 6 weeks later, the vast majority of people are surprised that their general waste is fitting and it's going absolutely fine. I think one of the advice pieces in there is to try and avoid throwing away or filling your bin with void space. Just taking the little time to squash things down instead of scrumpling up bits of newspaper to go in your recycling. If you fold it, it takes up much less space. I think we've got a lot of opportunity to add lots of practical tips like that onto the website, but obviously we can't put all that into the comms, although we'll try and drip feed the key messages as we go along. If you've got specific things that we're not thinking of that aren't in the FAQs, and thank you for raising one earlier, or other concerns that residents have got that we might not think of, welcome those being sent through to us so we can make sure we integrate them appropriately.
Thank you. I think it was mainly around access up and downstairs, people that might not, have the strength or be able to have the mobility to move the bins. And also the other point that I wanted to mention was in conservation areas, about how unattractive they look as well, in people's front gardens, etc., etc. So, how we can all manage it, because we're getting comments every week. Thank you.
Dan?
So I think the general guidance on conservation areas is that conservation areas are around planning and development, and they normally recognise that there is always to be progress. I'm well aware that some people don't like the look of bins, and we've had people demanding that even in non-conservation areas that bins should not be visible anywhere, and we should mandate that. We don't have a power to do so. We have a general working position at the moment that I'm just seeking to get approved with my bosses in terms of making the decisions on specific locations, so that the council has a reasonable threshold that it does apply or not. There's no one strict rule, there's no legal position. It's normally based on reasonableness, and I think cumulative issues at a property would be taken into account. The council can expect reasonable adjustments, and it can expect people to keep bins in front gardens where they have them, whether it's a conservation area or not. Lost my train of thought. Can you finish your question again? What was the end of it? Because I did have something to say that I thought was
on
important.
the physical side?
You're asking me.
It was on the physical side.
So I forgot. I was just going to say, I earlier on today, and you may not have all received it, sent out a couple of invitations to some briefings where I hope to cover off some more of that to give councillors guidance and a bit more of a robust position, so that when they're talking to their residents or in town council and parish council meetings, etc., that everyone is aware of where we are on that. So I've put those meetings in. I think there's one at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, the 23rd of this month, and another at 6 p.m. on Thursday, the 2nd, which is the week later. As with the sort of members briefing I did in advance of food waste, I will record probably the second meeting, because I hope to be a little bit slicker in that one, and share that with everybody. And I'm not convinced that that'll be the last briefing. I imagine as we get closer to the go live date, we'll probably have another round of member briefings, just to keep everyone up to speed. But I hope to tackle those questions more properly then, Councillor.
Right, I think that was the last question. I don't see any more hands. So I think we are largely finding the rollout has been a success, and support for the proposed future of the reusable bags. So if we're happy, I'd like to move to the recommendation, and that is a recommendation to the Cleaner and Greener Advisory Committee is that the details of this waste transition project progress update be noted and the decision to replace the reusable recycling bags be discussed with the committee's views submitted to Cabinet for consideration. All those in favour? I think that's everyone. Am I right? Yes, thank you. That is carried. You happy with that, Phil? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we now move, thank you, and Daniel, thank you both. Yeah. We now move to item 9, and that is the active travel update, pages 13 to 22 in your report, in your paper, sorry. So this report provides an update on the council's ongoing work to develop and deliver safe, accessible and attractive opportunities for active travel, including walking, wheeling and cycling across the district. This initiative is being taken forward in close partnership with Kent County Council, reflecting our shared commitment to improving local connectivity and supporting healthier ways of getting around. The work sits firmly within our key aim of promoting low carbon travel and encouraging more sustainable movement across the district. It also represents a practical contribution to our wider efforts to address the challenge of climate change and to support residents in making everyday journeys cleaner, safer and more convenient. And I'm going to hand over to Emma to give her report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides an update on the progress being made to improve walking, wheeling and cycling infrastructure across the district. Ultimately, the aim is to give people more genuine opportunities to leave their car at home and choose active travel instead, and particularly for those short everyday journeys, things like to the shops, to school and for leisure. As I'm sure you'll all be familiar with now, local cycling and walking infrastructure plans that we call LCWIPs are the foundation for every active travel project that we work on here. And I'm just going to hand over to Carlin actually to talk a little bit more about what these do, and in particular an update on our latest LCWIP in Edenbridge, and also how we're using the LCWIP in Swanley to further develop a walking and cycling route that connects Swanley and Hextable.
Thank you. Yeah, so in practice, LCWIPs do a few really important things. They help embed active travel in policy at the plan making stage and the decision taking stage. They also strengthen our position to influence planning applications and to secure improvements on the ground. Crucially, they also give us a robust evidence base to support funding, both in terms of securing developer funding and making bids for external funding. So collectively, they move us away from ad hoc schemes to a much more planned and fundable network. Locally, we're in a really strong position. LCWIPs have now been completed for Sevenoaks, Swanley, and most recently, Edenbridge. This means all 3 of our main towns are now covered. As a result, we have a consistent and robust evidence base for supporting walking and cycling improvements in our main towns. Focusing on Edenbridge, the LCWIP sets out a network of 11 combined walking and cycling routes. It reflects the town's compact and walkable nature, with routes structured around a clear network spine along Main Road and Station Road, which connects the north and the south of the town. The network focuses on strengthening connections to key destinations like the town centre, rail stations, schools, and the health centre. It also identifies existing barriers and sets out both design and place-making interventions to address these. So it's not just about movement, it's also about improving the overall quality of the environment, enhancing Edenbridge as a place people can enjoy even more. To build on that, route intervention plans have been prepared for 3 priority routes in Edenbridge. So they take the strategic direction set out in the LCWIP and translate it into more detailed route-specific recommendations. They show where interventions like crossings or footway improvements could be located and include an indication of deliverability using a red, amber, green system. Importantly, they help move schemes towards the next stage of planning and design. So taken together, the LCWIP and the route intervention plans provide a clear evidence-led basis for improving walking and cycling in Edenbridge. They strengthen our ability to secure funding and are particularly important as we progress the local plan, helping to embed active travel considerations early. So LC-WIP set out the strategic direction, and then the next step is moving into planning and design. The Swanleys Hexable feasibility study is a good example of that transition, taking a LC-WIP route and testing what could realistically be delivered on the ground. The feasibility study has now been completed, which looked at how the route could be improved to make walking safer and more convenient. Importantly, it didn't just look at walking in isolation, it also considered sections where the route overlaps with identified cycling routes, helping to future-proof any potential improvements. The study involved a detailed assessment of the existing infrastructure, including widths and the extent of the highway boundary, to understand what is actually achievable on the ground. Based on that, it developed a range of potential interventions, such as improved signage, targeted footway widening, and footway connections. Alongside identifying interventions, the study has also prepared indicative cost estimates and a project risk register, which sets out potential risks and how they could be managed. So this stage gives us a much clearer understanding of both the opportunities and the constraints associated with delivering the route. Now funding has been secured to progress the scheme into outline design, and that work is now underway. And there's also an intention to continue progressing the scheme to detailed design. And Kent County Council are also intending to undertake some targeted public engagement over the summer to help inform the development of the scheme. So to conclude, across the district, the LC-WIPs have given us a clear evidence-led foundation for active travel, and this places the council in a strong position to progress schemes into the next stages, including design, funding bids, and delivery as opportunities arise. And back to you.
Thank you. So that's Edenbridge and Swanley covered off. The report also updates members on 2 key projects in Sevenoaks Town. So the one you'll be most familiar with is the Sevenoaks East to West walking, wheeling and cycling route. That's now largely complete and in use. The only remaining section is the footpath between Robbins Way and London Road. Cycling is now legally permitted along that section of the route, and the widening works will go ahead once the final landowner agreement is signed, which from the latest from KCC we expect very shortly. Following Riverhead Parish Council's decision not to support improvements through the parkland, officers presented 2 alternative options to them earlier this year. The Parish Council ultimately chose the minimal intervention approach, meaning cyclists will need to dismount through that section, and so the signage will be updated to reflect this in the coming months. And as we approach a full year of use, KCC will be reviewing all of the usage data, so we get all seasons, and they'll also undertake a stage 4 safety audit on the route. This will help us understand how the route is performing and whether any further works are needed. Last October, the JTB reviewed the consultation feedback on the proposed route between Otford and Batton Ball and agreed that the project should continue. Since then, we focused on the southern section of the route between Batton Ball Road and Vestry Road, which received strong support during the consultation and offers a good opportunity to improve walking and cycling links with minimal impact on the highway network. It could also operate as a standalone route if needed. Detailed designs for this southern section are now complete, and these take the concept consulted on last year and turns it into a fully engineered construction-ready scheme, addressing all the technical requirements and ensuring compliance with LTN 120, which is the government cycling infrastructure cycling guidance. A cost-benefit analysis has also been carried out using Active Travel England's new tool, and the design is currently awaiting KCC sign-off, after which it will be submitted to Active Travel England for funding for construction. And finally, I just wanted to highlight how we're using our active travel work more widely than it may come across. So we're also using it to influence the planning process. The emerging local plan presents a major opportunity to deliver new walking and cycling infrastructure. And we've embedded active travel priorities for our 3 main towns, Sevenoaks, Swanley and Edenbridge, into the site allocations, development policies, and importantly, the infrastructure delivery plan, which is the plan that sets out all the infrastructure projects that are needed to enable the growth in the plan. This means that developers will be expected to deliver walking and cycling improvements on the ground wherever possible, or if preferred, provide financial contributions where on-site delivery isn't possible. And in fact, we're already seeing the benefits of this approach. We've begun influencing planning applications and negotiating improvements directly with developers through the DM process, ensuring that growth contributes to a safer, more connected active travel network and that new infrastructure is delivered in the places where it's most needed, when it's most needed. And thank you. We're happy to take questions.
Thank you both for those very good and detailed reports. I must say that latter part of Emma's report there to try and take forward more of the actual travel routes by through the planned development is an excellent way of increasing the delivery, not just relying on Active Travel England for funding. So that's all very exciting. Any questions? Councillor Ferrari, Councillor Darrington and Councillor Madsden. Oh, Councillor Lane, sorry.
Thank you,
Fine,
Chair.
sorry.
I just wanted to ask, because I'm not quite sure, what is wheeling?
Good question.
It's a great question and certainly not the first time we've been asked. It's mobility on wheels, so be that in a wheelchair, be a parent or a carer pushing a wheelchair or a pram, being on rollerblades, being on a scooter, something with manual wheels essentially. Right. So it means that we don't want curbs in the way to inhibit that movement.
Lovely, thank you for that.
Thank you. Am I happy with that? Fantastic. We then move to Councillor Manston. Oh, sorry, it wasn't Councillor Manston. Councillor Leyland. Have I missed somebody? No. Just Councillor Leyland. Thank you.
I'm an Edenbridge councillor, town councillor. Have you actually come to Edenbridge Council and actually met town council, or what engagement have your group had with Edenbridge Town Council?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So we had some online engagement regarding the Edenbridge Elsie Whip. So we had an online map where we asked respondents to map opportunities and barriers in Edenbridge. I think that was quite popular. I can't remember how many comments we received.
I'm talking about direct engagement with the town council. Have you visited Edenbridge Town Council, or any member of your group actually come to us and explained? Because I'm on planning, I'm on the outside spaces and everything else, and I don't seem to remember this coming to the fore.
Emma, are you coming in now?
Yeah, I will do if that's okay. So an LC whip is a fairly high level strategic document, and stakeholder engagement forms part of that. For the Edenbridge one, we did an online map and invited comments, but let's not forget that's the very first stage in the process. And we have had meetings with the town council on wider local plan discussions that have included talk about active travel and walking and cycling infrastructure. The next phase of the work—
Have you come to Edenbridge to do that?
Town councillors came to the offices here to do that.
Perhaps you could forward me exactly when that was done.
Yeah, we can take that offline for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shea. Oh, then Councillor Darrington. Yep.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the update. Couple of questions, if I may, perhaps inevitably, about the ones in Sevenoaks Town. East-West, I'm really, really pleased to hear that Robin's Way thing is finally coming together. It's been a long, long time in the works, so thank you for getting that over the line. Can you give us a sense of timescales for build and how it will then be maintained going forwards? And just for context, when we think about the other footpath included in that area, we've got the one on Clockhouse Lane, which has been improved and delivered as part of the walking route. But has not been swept since. So the sides is all very tree covered. The sides are encroaching again. So I'd like to just understand how we make sure between ourselves and KCC that those routes remain accessible and aren't just a flash in the pan. Disappointing really to hear that it's not going to make its way finally to Riverhead School. And I'd like just to register that, because the alternative is that cyclists have to go all the way along Worships Hill and Amherst Hill, and that is not a nice place to cycle, even if you can get up and down the hills. It's a real shame that it hasn't been able to get through the park. I want to record that.
Thank you, Councillor. For a hand over to Emma, I would just like to say on that last point, we did try really, really hard. I went to meetings with them. We had a site meeting with KCC, went through all the benefits, etc., etc. Where there were some sort of positive noises, but I think fundamentally they're opposed to the idea of cycling routes. So I know it is a shame. I'll hand over to Emma.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think between ourselves and KCC, we did as much as we could with that. First part of your question was around the timing of the works for Robin's Way. I'm told imminently. It's just in. But I will get a further update from KCC and let you know once we have those specific timings. I don't know if you remember when we constructed the main part of the route, we had a web page that set out exactly when the works were taking place, so we can make sure that that's updated to include the Robin's Way when it's finally agreed. But we had some issues with an unregistered landowner. There was some Network Rail land as well. That's taken a while in KCC's legal pile to resolve, but we're very almost there. I'll take away your point about Clockhouse Lane needing sweeping. Both Clockhouse Lane and Robin's Way are public rights of way, so they will be maintained going forward by the public rights of way team. So they'll be on the regular maintenance list. But any concerns residents have, they can log that with KCC directly.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if you're happy with that response, I'll move to Councillor Darrington.
Chair. Will there be regular inspections for maintenance and safety to avoid slip and trip claims?
That's a good question. I think I have to revert back to KCC and come back to you on our colleagues at KCC and revert back to you on that one. But the routes are all on public highways or public rights of way. So I imagine that the rules that apply to highways will also apply to these routes as well. They're all public spaces.
Good question. Happy with that response? Come back to you. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Manston.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to ask two questions, if that's okay. Firstly, I've gone on about this a few times before, about the fact that our towns are better, in my opinion, better connected with public transport. And I really, really think this is fantastic work. But it's the villages that have no public transport, country lanes, and really, really need some support with walking and wheeling. So I just ask again, when will we'll be looking at our villages, including New Ash Green? And also, have we set up any, or have we considered setting up e-bike hire schemes as a way to kind of to deal with this? Because certainly with New Ash Green, I think it's something that could work very well there. The train station is 3 miles walk from our village, so it's a long walk, and I think we need support with cycle lanes to make it possible first, or not necessarily cycle lanes, but facilitating cycling. But then there's the issue of actually having the bikes. So I'd be interested to know if we've looked at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly been looked into in the past. Emma?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I know we've talked about New Ash Green a lot, haven't we, in terms of a priority for an LC whip. At the moment, the majority or all of our active travel work is externally funded, and that comes from a pot that Active Travel England has, which is the national government agency for encouraging walking and cycling, and they allocate Kent County Council a proportion of the national funds to undertake walking and cycling infrastructure work across Kent, and then the individual boroughs and districts are invited to bid for that money. Now, up until recently, it's been a bit of a free-for-all, but KCC have recently introduced a 10-year priority plan, which I believe was discussed at the last JTB meeting. And basically what that means is that they've been inundated with requests, and it's their way of setting some criteria for how that money is allocated. And essentially it's a balance between the likelihood of behaviour change and population size. And I know we've talked about this before. The theory is that if you in an area with a larger population, the propensity to change is much more significant. So when we apply for funding, generally the more urban areas are more successful at this stage, and that's based on ATE guidance. Now, that's not to say that that won't change in the future. But because we know this is an issue, this is why we've tried to address walking and cycling infrastructure through the local plan and embedded active travel priorities there. Because of course we're potentially going to be having development sites come through in places like New Ash Green and other more rural areas. And we want to make sure that when those development proposals come forward, walking and cycling is at the heart of that development, and provision is made for walking and cycling. Now, I appreciate that's a less holistic way of looking at it, in terms of you can only deal with what's coming forward on each development site at once. But it certainly puts in motion the idea that we shouldn't be wholly reliant on the car, particularly in those more rural areas where you have got a train station about 3 miles up the road in Longfield, is it? That we ideally do want to get people to by public transport, either by bus or by walking or cycling. So it's small steps, I'm afraid, but we are trying to do what we can in those more rural areas. If the guidance change and KCC changes its criteria, absolutely we'll put some of our more rural areas forward. But really, you know, we want to get the most amount of change where we've got the highest population, because that in itself encourages behaviour change over the years.
Councillor Marsden, happy with that response?
I just was also, I would like to just say about the e-bikes, but in response to what you've just said, sorry, through Chair, I just would like to just maybe challenge slightly the idea that there is more propensity for change in more populous areas, because you know, that it depends, it's more than just population size. And I think that what you'd find certainly in my village, which is fairly densely populated, is that the way people get to the station is they drive. That's the only option. The public transport is not reliable enough. So and the parking is expensive. So I think that there really is an opportunity there for a lot of change. So I just want to highlight that. Thank you.
Yeah, we do take that point that the first mile, last mile journeys, it is something we've looked at, isn't it, Emma? And actually our community, what is she called, station?
Sarah, Community Rail Partnership Officer, has done a lot of work on first and last mile journeys. Coming back to you on the e-bike hire scheme, we did look at the feasibility for an e-bike hire scheme in Sevenoaks Town a good few years ago now. And the outcome essentially was that it wasn't feasible in Sevenoaks Town. So you can imagine what that means for the more rural areas. But having said that, in our emerging local plan, we have a sustainable movement policy, which looks at a movement hierarchy, essentially putting walking at the top, cycling next, public transport, then private car, and does encourage developers to think about outside the box a little bit about sustainable movement and potentially looking at car clubs and e-bike schemes, things like that. But it will depend on viability, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Councillor White, I think you had a question.
Thank you. Emma, mine's almost a request for maybe some guidance as to next steps. My ward has plenty of cyclists, a lot of ramblers. So whilst we might not come under your particular project, it's quite active in that area. There is one footpath in my ward, SD 157. I have been complaining about it for almost a year. It happens to be in a location where I've got 6 residents that use mobility aids to get about. They cannot use the footpath because there are steps, and even the barrier around by the steps is broken. The steps are poorly designed, and I've been asking KCC to make improvements. The way that the residents at this particular location, if they want to go to the local pub, just you know, to enjoy themselves in the sunshine, they have to go down the main road along a 60-mile-an-hour road, cross over an opposite 60-mile-an-hour road, and then they're on to a 30-mile-an-hour zone. I don't know if you can give me any guidance or any support or any wisdom to get one single footpath improved, so we have people that are wheeling and walking. The particular 60-mile-an-hour routes don't have any pavement, so you're putting wheelchair users in the line of 60-mile-an-hour traffic, and I'm infuriated. I cannot get KCC to look at this, so it's really just a plea, put on record my annoyance, and if you can give me a guidance, and if your guidance still remains it's KCC, fine, I'll persist, but just looking for help.
Yeah, understand your problems. That it's really something for your local county members, and that Councillor Logan. Yeah. Emma, is there anything we can offer?
I don't know the footpath that you're referring to. Is it something that a ramp could achieve? And no, okay. I was just going to say, if it's something that you could add in a ramp, then that might be something that the parish council can contribute their SIL funds towards, the community infrastructure levy funds towards. But other than that, I think, yeah, county member and officers at KCC, I'm afraid.
If I could see my county member and if he would actually support me, that would be useful, but thank you.
It's frustrating. Okay, I think that is the last question or comment. So thank you everyone for your contributions. I'll now turn to the recommendation to the Cleaner and Greener Advisory Committee to note this update report for information. All those in favour? I think that's everyone, so that's carried. Thank you very much. So we now move to item 10, and that's the work plan. So then our next committee meeting is on the 1st of October. At the moment, the work plan or the agenda is shaping up to have another a waste transition progress report and comms plan, annual parking management review fees and charges, and the annual parking report 24-25. Actually, that should be 25-26. There's a typo there. And an update on the CCTV service review and upgrade that we approved last year. So that's looking like the October agenda. And then the next meeting after that is on the 24th of November. Again, we'll have another update on the transition, waste transition progress and the accompanying communications plan, and the climate change action plan annual review. Already only seems like yesterday. Any members have any suggestions? Councillor Gustav?
Thank you, Chair. When we are discussing the annual parking review in October, will we also be looking at the parking penalty policies that we have at the council, or we choose to opt into?
The reports certainly cover all of those notices, how they operate, and so on and so forth. I don't think we have a lot of scope to alter the process. I think I'm right in saying, but I could put that one to Trevor for you, who's not with us this evening, and come back to you. Would that be okay? Yes, so on that case, I would just like to, that brings us to the end of the meeting at 8:40 nearly. I'd like to thank you all for coming along and your contributions, and thank you to our officers for your presentations, and wish you all a good night. Thank you.